Hello and welcome to another Canguro English Daily Digest. My name is Christian and today is Friday, best day of the week. And one of the reasons that it's the best day of the week is because of all of the love that I receive every day from all of you beautiful people. Like, for example, this morning I got a postcard from Venice from Eduardo and Georgia. And they said, thank you for all your efforts in teaching English. It's my absolute pleasure. And this is going on my board, Hall of Fame. Okay, so yesterday I talked about how the words that you learn when you are young, when you're like a baby and when you're a child, those words are really deeply embedded in your brain. They are very difficult to forget, very strong connections. And I talked about how these early words are basically the same across all of the languages that have been studied, right? But there's something else hidden, something hidden in this paper that helps us to answer the question, why do some people from some languages, why do the people speak faster than others? Right? Great question. So first I want to show you these flashcards, okay? Now, these flashcards contain the 100 most frequently used words in English. And because of Zipf's law, these 100 words make up 50% of everything that we speak and hear and listen to, right? So now, I'm going to read some of these words, and I want you to tell me if you notice anything, right? That, on, to, like, want, as, came, went, is, off, see, etc., etc. Do you notice anything, any kind of pattern? Well, all of these words, with the exception of a few, are monosyllabic. And this research about early words showed that those early words that we learn when we're babies and children are much more phonetically simple than the words that we learn when we're older. For example, in this study, they show that the early words we learn have approximately 3 different phonemes, 3 different kind of sounds, and the words we learn later in life have, on average, 6, double the complexity. And this helps us to answer the question of why it appears that some languages speak faster than others. I know that when my family come to visit me here in Spain, and they're watching people talk or they're watching the news on television, they say, man, the Spanish, they speak so quickly. It's like, right? Now, we have to ask a sort of bigger question. What exactly does it mean to speak quickly? How can you judge the speed of someone's talking? How do we measure it? Well, think about it. Think of that imitation I did of fast speaking. It goes and so what it tells us is that what we observe to be speed of speech is actually syllables. We're observing syllables. Now, you might think that a syllable is an easy thing to define. Maybe it's like, well, some definitions say that it's a sound unit that contains a vowel. Some say that it's about the power of the kind of the speech, right? And there's other definitions. There's no one kind of accepted definition, but I think we all have an idea about what a syllable is. It's the beat or the rhythm of the language. Now, early words are monosyllabic and later words are much more complicated. Now, I have this really interesting study here. It's called A Cross-Language Perspective on Speech Information Rate. Fascinating stuff. And what they did was they took a little story, a little paragraph in English, and they translated it into 7 different languages. And they wanted to know which languages spoke faster by measuring syllables. So this was the story. Last night I opened the front door to let the cat out. It was such a beautiful evening that I wandered down the garden for a breath of fresh air. Then I heard a click as the door closed behind me. I realized I'd locked myself out. To cap it all, I was arrested while I was trying to force the door open. And they translated it into French, Italian, Japanese, German, Mandarin, Chinese, and Spanish. Anoche abrí la puerta del jardín para sacar el gato. My German. When I do German, I have to do that kind of like, letzte Nacht hab ich. Anyway, so what they did was they measured how many syllables per second that these languages produce. And it's really fascinating. So English produces 6.19 syllables per second, right? French, 7.18. German, 5.97. Italian, 6.99. Japanese, 7.84. Mandarin, 5.18. Spanish, 7.82. And Vietnamese, 5.22. So if we look at that, immediately you can see that although there's some variation, it's not like huge, it's not like 2 and 20. It's sort of, more or less. But that Spanish, they are producing more syllables per second than English. But that's only kind of half the story, because we need to ask how much information is contained in each syllable, the information rate. And this is where things get really interesting. So maybe, for example, in English, each syllable, contains more or less information than in another language. And I can give you a kind of basic example in English. So, for example, if I want to say in English, I will go, I will go, I need 3 words and 3 syllables to say this sentence. I, because it's obligatory to include the subject in English, I will to indicate the future, and go. But in Spanish, we only use one word, we use one word. We have the verb ir, and then we conjugate the verb for me, for first person, and then we also conjugate the verb for the future. So in this syllable, we have 2 pieces of information. We have this and this, which requires 2 syllables in English. This is just a basic example. And what they discovered was that certain languages have different information rates. For example, English compared to, now Vietnamese was the baseline. So compared to Vietnamese, English has 1.08 of an information rate compared to Vietnamese. French, 0.99. German, 0.9. Italian, 0.96. Mandarin, 0.94. Spanish, 0.98. And here's the weird one. Japanese, 0.74. Now, Japanese is probably different because of the way that they encode syllables. But what it tells us is that, in general, in all of the languages studied, information comes at the same rate. So even though it appears people are speaking faster, the content is the same. I hope you enjoyed today's Daily Digest. I'm Christian, and I'll see you in class.